And over the weekend, we saw that theaters around the country participated in National Cinema Day, meaning tickets were only $3 at the participating theaters. Did this help the box office at all?
Yes and no. I mean, tickets were $3, so but the good news is that around 8.1 million people bought tickets to the movies on Saturday, this past Saturday. That's a huge upswing from general expectations. So what that implies is that the theater price, because ticket prices have risen with inflation,
Mhm.
is a hindrance to audiences who would otherwise be interested in going to the movies. Now, that's not me saying, oh, theater tickets should just, movie theaters should put everything at $5 a pop and watch the profits roll in. But I do think this may signal that there needs to be some kind of conversation to be had about maybe making tickets more affordable, with the caveat that you'll make up for it in concession sales, which is where most of the profit margin for theaters come from anyway. For example, right now, under normal circumstances, it would cost anywhere from $50 to $100 to take a family of five to see DC Super Pets or Minions: The Rise of Gru. That's not that's not as much of a value proposition as it used to be in the pre-streaming era. However, if you can arrange it so those tickets only cost $25, and that family of five feels comfortable spending that money to go to theaters, they'll probably make up for it in concession sales. Because, spoiler, it's really hard to tell a kid they can't have snacks at the movies.
Yeah, that's true. So they'll feel less guilty with the giant popcorn, the candy, the soda.
Yes. And that's what we've seen with MoviePass, which may have been a disaster for shareholders, but it worked as intended for consumers. It boosted the ticket sales for movies overall, and more importantly, non-event movies, the ones that people used to see more often when they went to the movies just to go to the movies.
Mhm.
If the ticket price is not a factor with MoviePass or AMC A List or Regal Unlimited, or I think it's called the Cinemark Movie Club, all the chains have some kind of subscription service now. Pretty much all of them do. And the details all vary. But when you remove the ticket price from the equation, even if it's just psychological, people are more willing to take a chance on a less surefire picture. And by that, I mean, just a movie like something like Beast or The Invitation or Where the Crawdads Sing, something that isn't a $200 million fantasy franchise action picture.
Because you won't feel like it's breaking the bank going if it's at a lower price.
And if you haven't paid for the ticket price, you're more likely to spend that $10 on popcorn and soda, which is, theaters will make more of a profit from that anyway. And again, I'm throwing out random ideas here, but I've felt for years that, especially for family films, for the reasons that we just discussed, there should be some way to, like, you pay full price for your ticket for a family movie, but you can get that ticket almost entirely compensated in concession sales. So your ticket costs $10 to Minions for your kid, but if you spend $10 on concessions, you get that back.
That's an
I mean,
interesting
they
idea.
do that, and there's certain, I remember the Universal City Walk in California, and I don't know what it's like right now. I don't go there that often, but there was a period where you pay $5 for parking, and if you buy a movie ticket, you get your money back. I remember once I was there for a work event, and this was 16, 17 years ago. And I went to the movies for something I otherwise wasn't going to see at that time because, hey, I've already paid $5 for parking. I'm here for a couple hours anyway. I might as well get five of that back and get a movie ticket.
I'm recently an A-list AMC member. So my first movie was this weekend. I went to the movies. So I didn't feel as guilty. I bought a small popcorn for myself and a candy because the ticket was so cheap. The ticket was free, essentially.
What did you see?
I did see Elvis finally, late to the party. Yes, late.
What did you think?
I loved it. I mean, we talked about this earlier, but Elvis is nostalgia for a lot of people, especially the older crowd because they grew up with that music. But I grew up with that music too, listening to it with my grandpa every weekend on the way to breakfast. So it was a good time for me at the movies.
Yeah, I mean it's a big movie. It plays like a theatrical musical event, but
Mhm.
and this shouldn't be a surprise considering Baz Luhrmann's filmography, but it's certainly not nostalgic in terms of how his career played out,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is why I'm oddly refreshed that it's been as leggy as it has. The film has made $281 million on an $85 million budget, made 149 world or domestic, despite being on PVOD for the last several weeks and despite being on HBO Max as of this past Friday. The film is globally the biggest musical biopic of all time behind Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a bonkers lightning in a bottle movie that made 905 million worldwide 4 years ago. Um, so yeah, and again, one anecdotal piece of evidence isn't necessarily a theory, but I've always believed that if theaters are basically buildings that sell you concessions and the movies are what get you in the door, then there needs to be some kind of conversation about how to make people more likely to show up to buy that popcorn.
I
And
like
even
your
if that's
idea.
basically giving the movie away for free, relatively speaking. Because I remember one of my college, when I took a college class on TV well, 20 some years ago, the professor opened up the lecture with basically saying television is basically selling us. We are the product. The people that watch the television show are the product
Mhm.
for the benefit of those who would pay money to advertise.
Mhm.
So it's a strange symbiotic relationship that's not as simple as the product is the TV show that we now watch. And that's part of why the streaming era has been so skewed, because it changed the formula. There is no advertising, or there's very little advertising in most streaming content. So the nature of what is a success, what is not a success, is completely out of whack.